Good day, and thank you for tuning in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast. For all of our new listeners and viewers who are tuning in for the very first time, I'm Pastor Pope. Thank you for allowing us to come into your viewing environment. We are here with you every Monday through Friday from 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, scheduling permitted, to address whatever topics you might like to discuss and whatever issues of life you find challenging or that you find difficult to navigate. We are here in 3D that you may discuss careers, finances, entrepreneurship. You can discuss marriage, divorce, raising children, blending families, whatever's in your heart, whatever's on your mind. God is concerned about that which concerns you. So you may call or text every day now on the T-Mobile call or text line. Of course, you know we are Facebook Live, we are YouTube Live, so we have provided platforms for our listeners and viewers to communicate with us in whatever way you might like to communicate. Whatever topics you might like to discuss, whatever issues of life you find challenging or difficult to navigate, we are here in 3D, brought to you by Fiji Water, Earth's finest water. You may already know that Fiji water comes from Fiji. However, did you know that it is created by nature? It is untouched by man. It starts as a tropical rainfall which slowly filters through layers of volcanic rock, where the water collects in a natural, sustainable artesian aquifer where it is bottled right at the source, free from human contact until you unscrew the cap. Fiji Water, Earth's finest water, will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery, and you'll save money at FijiWater.com. This is Earth's finest water. And for all of our listeners and viewers who continue giving on the Give segment of our app, and those of you that have made a weekly or monthly commitment to support the broadcast, we thank you for your continued support and your commitment as we fulfill our commitment to God to be here for you in 3D to address whatever topics you might like to discuss, whatever issues of life you find challenging or difficult to navigate. So I'm going to address a communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that aside from working, all you have been doing during the pandemic is shopping, and it is causing arguments between you and your husband. Well, let me address this one step at a time. So first of all, you've identified, and your husband's helped you to identify what the problems are, the arguments are based upon. So if you've been shopping for a whole year, that is a problem. If you've been spending your pandemic hours finding ways to spend money instead of finding ways to save and invest, that is a problem. The arguments that you're having, part of it is COVID fatigue, but the major part of it, your husband is correct, is because he sees how much money is going out based on your shopping over the past year. Now, we have literally been notified of a pandemic as of this month a year ago. So it's been a year, and you've been shopping for a whole year. You have really wrecked your budget, for lack of a better term. In other words, you've been spending beyond what your budget is. So what you've been spending is not what you need to sustain your bills, but you've been spending all of your savings, all of the money that you have saved in whatever areas you've had it saved. You've been dipping into the till to not to invest or not to find ways to generate additional streams of revenue, but just to fill a void that's in your life right now. So the void you're trying to fill has to be identified. What is it that's causing you to spend all your time online shopping? What is it that you feel is necessary that you will receive gratification from having packages arrive at your door? You know, and you're not the only one. There are people who shop online all year long. That's part of what they do. Doesn't mean it's good for them. But you have been trying to fill that void of immediate gratification by shopping all year, having packages show up at your door. So you have to identify what's the void. What is the void in your life that you find it necessary to do this instead of focusing on positive things? So you might say, well, Pastor, shopping is positive for me. It's therapeutic for me, but it's not conducive for your success. It's not conducive for your long-term wealth building process. So you have to get back to the basics. You have to look at your budget. We're coming up on the end of the first quarter of this year. Now, the reason I brought this up about being in a pandemic for a year is because now we have an opportunity to we have a benchmark. We have an opportunity to really review, and I know it's not the start of the year, but the 15th of this month, we shut everything down for 2 months here in America. We shut everything down. And what I want you to do now is reflect back over your habits for the year. And that you've been doing a lot of shopping. You know that you've been shopping continuously, packages showing up at your front door. You know what you've been doing that is off budget. Go back to your budget that you formed for the beginning of last year. Now, the problem is that you didn't, as I've encouraged everyone to do, you didn't go back and review and revise your budget for this year, because even in the midst of a pandemic, there's a change in our spending habits. I'm not talking about discretionary shopping. I'm talking about we begin to move one line item to another line item. And because we entered into a pandemic about a year ago, even though we know that COVID was present in 2019, that's why it's called COVID-19 versus COVID-20. But because we entered into a pandemic, that's when we needed to make this shift. We needed to identify, but now you're going to have to go back and review. We needed to identify what changes we were going to have to make in our budget. Now, there will be people who will say, well, we didn't know what that was going to look like, but the reality is you knew that you wouldn't have to commute to the office because you'd be working from home. As soon as it was announced that we were shutting down, we knew that we were going to be working from home. So commuter costs reduce. However, service on your vehicles, the general maintenance isn't going to change much, because there's going to be certain things that need to be done no matter if you're driving or not. So, for us, we have to get our vehicle serviced once a year, and we knew that was coming no matter what, pandemic or not. So there's certain things that we know we're going to have to do. But your day-to-day cost of commuter expenses was going to change. But that line item was going to be moved over to something else, such as utility costs, in-home meals, because your commuter costs are going down, but your utility costs are going to go up. And the reason is because you're now working from home. So all we're really doing in some cases is shifting capital from one place to another. So we have to be mindful of those things, and we have to go back and review our budget. You probably, a lot of people picked up their COVID-19 during the pandemic, so we have to realize that our, home meal budget is going to increase. There are certain things that are going to increase, and certain things that are going to decrease. So you're going to be able to move certain things from one line item to the next. So the truth of the matter is, mostly speaking, we would be able to at least balance our budget and still save. And in some cases, people will increase in their savings, but still save and invest throughout the year, throughout the pandemic. Watching the market, making the adjustments in our investment portfolio, those are things that we can do. But it all begins with the budget. We have to look at what the budget is. And as I've said before, and I'll say this again since we're coming up on the end of the quarter, if you're a new listener and viewer, or you need a new budget, you didn't run copies when I sent out the budget previously, if you need a new budget to draft, send me an email, I'll make sure you get one. And I'm saying that because I recognize that we don't really understand that even in the midst of a pandemic, there's certain things we need to do to be productive and to be successful, to be prosperous, to continue to prosper and have good success. And that includes our working dynamics at home, but that's a different topic. So I'm going to stay with you for a moment and say, you've got to recognize how important it is to be able to continue investing, saving and investing, even in the midst of a pandemic. That's going to be real important. It's important if you can, stay ahead of your expenses, but at the same time, maintaining your saving and investing. We don't want to get off the track with that. We want to make certain that we are constantly saving throughout the year. And I gave an example previously, and I'm going to give another one. For the remainder of this year, find a certain amount, a specific amount that you can save every month, that you can save every single month, so that by the end of the year, you'll be prepared to invest. And if the opportunity occurs during the year, you'll have money saved in reserve so that you can invest if there's a correction in the market during the year. But at least by the end of the year, we'll have some clarity of what the market's doing, and you'll be prepared to invest. This is going to be important. And what we have to recognize is that immediate gratification is only going to last immediately. It's never going to sustain itself. You won't feel good, and that's why you continue buying, because you're not being satisfied with the purchase that you make. You make another purchase because you're still trying to fill that void. And what I'm going to encourage you to do, first and foremost, is work on, and this is for all of our listeners and viewers, work on your relationship with the Lord. Because whatever the voids are in our lives, whatever that place is that we feel empty, our relationship with the Lord will fill that space. And the reason is because of this. When you are working on your relationship with the Lord, God is constantly revealing things to you, not about the past, but about the present and the future, which is always going to fill the void that you're feeling. And so we have to be constantly in that experience of our relationship with the Lord, because that's what gives us the ability to look forward. We live in the present. We prepare for the future. We work for the future. But it allows God to reveal to us what He has planned and purposed for our lives. So I'm going to encourage you. It will reduce or eliminate the arguments between you and your husband if you stop trying to fill your void with material things and fill the void in your life with spiritual things. It's going to enhance the quality of your life, and I encourage that for us all. That's my prayer for all of us, is that we'll continue to develop and enhance our relationship with the Lord, so that God can continue to reveal to us where He is taking us, so that we're prepared when we get to where God is taking us, that we're prepared for the blessings of God, that we're prepared to continue moving forward. You'll find if you stop shopping right now, if you stop shopping now, whatever packages are going to come in between now and the 15th of March, those will come in, but don't order anymore. And the reason is because that was officially the shutdown, was March 15th. So that's been a year. You don't need to waste any more money shopping. You've been shopping all year, so you have everything, not only that you need, but you have everything that you wanted during this year, because you've been constantly ordering, and now's the time to stop the madness, focus on the future, and the blessings that God has purpose for you and your husband. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by T-Mobile, America's largest nationwide 5G provider at no extra charge. So if you are not currently a T-Mobile customer, you may call or text on the T-Mobile call or text line at 267-992-1424. We will place you into our queue so that you can become a T-Mobile customer and experience America's largest and fastest 5G provider at no extra charge. Taxes and fees are included in your bill. And if you auto pay by attaching a credit card to your account, you will receive a discount on your monthly bill at T-Mobile, America's largest and fastest 5G provider at no extra charge. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that your husband is the most negative man you will find anywhere, or that we will ever meet. Okay. You thought he would change over time, however, it has become more negative. And you want to know, what can you do about the negativity? So the first question you have to ask yourself is, why did you expect him to change? We expect people to grow, but the problem is that you cannot expect people to change who they are. When people show you who they are, you got to believe them. So you knew when you started dating him, you saw the signs that he's a pessimistic person. He's even beyond a pessimistic person. He's negative about everything. So, pessimism, also indicates that you don't have faith in what the future holds. But when you're negative about everything, that implies that, his comments are negative. What he speaks is going to be negative throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year. I get it. But the question is, why did you expect him to change? Because you knew when you started dating him that was his personality. What we hope for is growth. One of the ways that we hope for growth is to encourage growth. So, the concept is, if you know someone is negative, you first of all have to keep speaking positive. You can't buy into the negative, because then you don't become part of the solution, you become part of the problem. So you have to keep a positive mindset so that over the years you would hope that he grows, that he would grow into a person who sees life from a different perspective. Now the problem is, you wanted to be joined with him, and because the two of you have now gotten married, you've got to deal with this personality, because this is who he is. He's not abusive, mentally or physically. He's negative. He's brought all of life's baggage, the whole journey of life. He's brought all of that baggage with him to date. He continues to carry it around. You attend church, he doesn't attend church, so he doesn't really have the same experience with life that you're having. Now, you're not in our area. I wish you were, because I would sit down and have a conversation with him, because I don't expect anyone who attends New Life Christian Center to live with negative thoughts. That's just not who we are, or not who we're going to be, because we're going to continue to grow. What you now have to do is encourage him to grow. And because you've been married for a good period of time, you didn't say this in your communication, but God allowed me to see in that secret place of your lives. You've been married for 9 years. He hasn't changed. You have to encourage growth. And the way that you encourage growth, first of all, is by speaking. Every time he says something negative, share the positive with him. Now, I understand, I'm going to get to all of our listeners and viewers in a moment, but you've got to speak something positive every time he speaks something negative. And then you have to encourage him to look at life from a different perspective. You have to encourage him to take a moment. You don't want him to dwell there, but take a moment and look at all the baggage he's carried with him, all of the negative things that have happened over the course of his lifetime. He's brought those to, that is his perspective that he's brought with him. And what you have to remind him is all of those things are past. None of those things are anymore a part of your lives. And because they're no longer a part of your lives, for that, he should first of all give God glory. He should be excited about what God has done to turn that around, to turn his life around. In the sense of, what I mean is, all of the challenges that he's faced along the way, all of the difficulties that he's endured, everything that he's been through, he has to look at where he is today. And if he doesn't lift his hands, you need to lift your hands and say, to God be the glory. This is how you can encourage a positive environment. Just have him take a pause and look back for a moment. And then remind him this is no longer your life. You have a good life and you're building a better life together. And because of where you are right now, what you have to expect is that you're going to continue to flourish in the future. You have to believe that. You have to believe that if things are this good right now, and listen, everyone's this good is different, but if things are this good right now, you have to say to yourself, they are only going to get better because I'm in a better place now. I'm in a different state of mind now. I have different behavior now, different behavioral pattern. I have a different thought process. But if he keeps the same thought process that he's always had, and you don't need to approach it this way, but if he keeps the same process, the same thought processes that he's always had, he can expect the same thing to occur. But when you're looking unto the hills from which your help comes, when you're looking to the sky, when you're looking, there's an old song, keep your head to the sky, that implies that things are going to go higher. Your expectation has to change. So you have to encourage him to have a different expectation. And I know the reason that's what I'm going to get to all of our listeners and viewers. I know there are listeners and viewers out there right now who are saying, Pastor, I am tired of trying to drag someone along kicking and screaming. I'm tired of trying to get them to look at the positive. I'm exhausted from trying to get them to change the poor mentality, the poor mentality. I'm exhausted from it. And I realize there are times when you sit and you just don't say anything. But when you hear things that are negative, you got to keep speaking positive things to yourself, because you've got to believe for both of you. You've got to believe for your entire family that things are going to continue to get better. You've got to put the work in. I'm a firm believer that faith without work is just hope. It's just, the Bible says faith without works is dead. I often like to use the analogy so that people can really grab hold of it, that faith without works is just hope. You can sit around and hope for things to happen. You can even sit around and talk about things are going to happen. But if you're not putting any work in, some work in, that's going to translate into God saying, I can see your faith at work. And I'm going to bless you even though you might not be fully persuaded. You might not fully believe. Because, the Bible says you just have to have the faith of a mustard seed. But at some point, you got to have more seeds than one. And you got to be willing to plant them. You've got to be willing to have a positive perspective about life today and the future in front of us. And I would encourage you to encourage your husband to sit with you and listen to this. I wasn't directing this for him, but it will help him to understand. And if he has any questions, the two of you can email me at newlifepastor@comcast.net. I will respond to whatever the questions might be. Because we've got to change our mindset. We've got to change how we think about life. You know, many of us grew up in a challenged environment. Many of us, even if you had a good childhood, you really didn't have a lot. Many of us have faced challenges throughout our adult life. But when you just stop for a moment and you look back just for a moment on how far you've come and where God has placed you right now, you have to believe that what God has planned for you in the future is good and not of evil. It is God. It is mind blowing, because that's who God is. That it is something greater than you had expected for yourself, because look at where He's placed you now. Look at the life you're living right now. You know it's only going to get better because it's already gotten better. Look at God. And what a blessing our lives are today. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by Charles Terrett, located in London, the UK. They also have stores in New York, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and at the King of Prussia Mall in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. So if you're in any of those areas, check for the store hours. Stop in at the retail store. They have everything a man could possibly need: shirts for men, ties for men, suits for men, and accessories. If you are not in any of those areas, you can order from Charles Terrett at ctshirts.com. They will ship and deliver right to your front door in an appropriate period of time. And the White Company, located in London, the UK, they also have a store on Fifth Avenue in New York. So if you're in New York, stop in at the retail store. They have everything you could possibly need. They have home goods, clothing for men, women, and children. If you're not in New York, you can order from the White Company at thewhitecompany.com. They too will ship and deliver right to your front door in an appropriate period of time. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that you have not had successful relationships with the men you had relationships with within the past. So you want to know, what can you do to ensure the next relationship is successful? You know, that's an excellent question. And I know I've talked about dating the right way in the past on the broadcast, but this is an excellent question, and it still leads back to that, but because we've got to start doing things differently. But here's the good news is that right now, because you're not in a relationship, you have the time to work on you. You have the time to work on you to make sure that you prepare yourself for the next relationship. And hopefully that okay, so I'm going to be more specific because God has already shown me. If you work on you and prepare yourself for the next relationship, you're not just preparing yourself for the next relationship, but you're preparing yourself to become a wife. Because God has someone assigned to your life that is going to bless your life. That the two of you coming together will bless your life forever. You've got to do your part right now. God was weeding them out. You have to do your part. And that is prepare yourself. Work on you right now. Body, mind, and spirit. Work on you. Make certain that you have your health in order so that, we had with us last week our monthly contributor, Rebecca Buva, who is a licensed and registered dietitian and nutritionist, and BeccaTheDietitian.com. And she gave us a recipe for the month. There are things we can do. I'm going out and get a run because today we have good weather here today. There's things we can do to prepare ourselves in our body. We can work on our mind, work on our attitude, work on the way that we conduct ourselves we can work on our mind, and then most importantly, we have to work on the spirit. We have to have the right spirit. So pray for a renewed spirit. And if you do that, then we can get into the next phase of that, which is how we're going to date. So I'm going to remind everyone, I've said this before, for men or women, whoever you decide that you are interested in dating or